Welcome to Tech at the Table, where innovation meets conversation and new ideas are always on the table. I'm your host, Roy Rittaller, and today I'm honored to have as my guest Ron Brill from Anglepoint. Ron, welcome.
Thanks, Roy. Thanks for having me. It's great.
I, I'm thrilled to have you. I know we talk off and on all year, but I know we talked towards the end of last year. So Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026.
Happy New Year.
I
Absolutely.
know. I'm pretty excited about 2026. I think it's going to be a very interesting year for the industry, and I think it's going to be interesting for the world. It's quite the time right now where things are changing. So, tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself. I know you have a fascinating, what you do today, like your current involvement in the industry, your history, your work with Anglepoint. Can you give the audience just a little bit of a background on where you come from and what you're involved with, what you're passionate about?
Sure. Well, I started my career at KPMG many years ago on the financial audit side.
You know that? Yeah,
And
KP.
then over the years, I transitioned over to the advisory side of the house, and I've done a number of different things in that space until I ended in software license compliance, doing initially mostly audits on behalf of software publishers. And then at some point, left KPMG with some other individuals to start Anglepoint, where we focus on the end user side of the equation and helping companies manage their software assets, optimize their licensing, and so forth. And outside of Anglepoint, I chair the ISO committee for IT asset management standards. That's the committee known as Working Group 21 that owns the ISO 19770 family of standards. And I chair the board of trustees at the ITAM Forum, which is a global nonprofit that's based in London that's promoting the ITAM industry through education, certification, events, and so on. And the ITAM Forum is actually going to be joining the Linux Foundation to be kind of a sister organization to the FinOps Foundation. So we're very, very excited about that. Quick word on Anglepoint. We're a global service provider for software asset management and FinOps. We serve many of the world's largest organizations, including more than 20 of the Fortune 100. And for the last 6 years, we've been recognized by Gartner as leading the Magic Quadrant. And most recently in the new IDC report that came out on the same industry that came out for the first time this year, and we were positioned as a leader there as well. So that's very briefly about Anglepoint myself.
I think Anglepoint is one of those. We work as partners. I work, I'm from Flexera, as we all know, and you're in Anglepoint, and we've worked well together as partners over the years. I've always appreciated you as a partner, and I've always appreciated all the people that work around you. It's quite the organization, and it gets everywhere. And you're not just with clients, you're with industry. You're also inside. You work well with consulting. You work well in advisory. Tell me where you think things are right now. What's the state of play? Where are we today? What's our situation starting 2026 like this?
Yeah, things are definitely evolving in the marketplace for sure. We're seeing things a lot more interconnected than they used to be. As far as what our clients' requirements are. So, maybe in the past they were looking to get some help with audit support or specific projects, or to do a one-off license reconciliation or even a periodic license reconciliation. I think increasingly our clients are expecting us to work with technology, or to become more of a technology-led consulting firm. They want the solution implemented within their technology infrastructure, not outside of it. They're looking for things to be a lot more interconnected relative to different functions within the organization, right? So working more closely with security, working more closely with IT service management, with SRE, with other functions. So definitely things are heading in the direction where it's a lot more interconnected. Things are a lot more fast-paced. I think AI has contributed to that as well. The environment's a lot more ephemeral. There's much faster pace of change in technology, and we need to catch up to remain relevant and help our client sponsors remain relevant within their organizations, and how to address all that. So there's definitely a lot of all those changes together. But I would say if I had to kind of summarize it, I would say the level of interconnectedness is definitely increasing.
Fascinating. I have to I smiled because you said the word ephemeral, and I was talking with my wife this morning. We were coming in, taking my daughter and I used the word ephemeral, and she says, "Can't we get through the first hour of the day without you saying the word ephemeral?" So thank you for validating me. I feel good about that. Awesome.
Absolutely.
The interconnect, it's fascinating. I've used the word convergence for it, but it is an
Mhm.
interconnect, it's more of a fabric, right, of various services that are serving the business. There was an interesting article from Charlie Betts at Forrester. He talked about the enterprise, all the different
Yeah.
services connecting in a graph, essentially. Are you seeing that world is actually happening right now? Do you see customers driving it, or do you see it being driven more in an advisory capacity or by the tech providers? Who's driving that interconnectedness in your mind?
I think it's coming from all directions, but I think primarily it's the changes that are happening within the technology infrastructure that our clients
Mhm.
are running. So, in the past, they used to have, let's say, a cloud environment, and they used to have an on-prem environment, maybe a private cloud, and different environments and different workloads were running predominantly on one of these environments. But now it's really one interconnected infrastructure that has some components that are running on cloud, some components that are running on SaaS, some components that are on edge or private cloud or whatnot. And you can't really separate the
Yeah.
different parts of the infrastructure anymore in terms of how it's architected, right? So that is driving everything else. I think analysts, consulting firms are responding to that. Our clients seeing different needs around that kind of interconnected structure.
Yeah, the simple days of hybrid are probably gone right now. They've been blown out of the water, right? It's an interconnected fabric. It's nice to see, having been in the business for a long time, it's nice to see that we're in that state. We're finally there. Finally have all the blockers
Yeah.
gone. So it's being driven more by infrastructure. Do you see it as evolving or disrupting? How do you see the world going forward? Like, is it a true disruption in terms of how end users, customers, providers are looking at this, or do you see it as something that's incrementally moving forward?
I think it's evolving as far as the from an interconnectedness standpoint. I think it's definitely evolving. There are certain other elements that are causing more of a disruption, like with AI and so forth. But I think as far as infrastructure becoming kind of more of a truly one infrastructure with different components and different parts, I think that's been kind of a gradual evolution. It's been accelerated now with AI and other things, but it's been happening for a while now.
Okay, that's interesting. So as we evolve, we're kind of disrupting kind of up in the application space, but we're evolving the infrastructure to go meet that. Okay. So from an ITAM, since you're in a core ITAM leader, how does that affect ITAM? How does it causing ITAM to evolve, and how the architecture of ITAM going to evolve in your opinion?
Mhm. Yeah, it's going to have already having and going to continue to have a big impact on ITAM, right? I think ITAM wasn't originally designed for or is currently implemented as one that's looking at the entire infrastructure, right? So if you look at most ITAM programs today, whether they're using a managed service provider, whether they're doing it in-house, it's fairly has a fairly limited scope in terms of what they're looking at and types of environments and types of activities and so forth. They're not really set up to have kind of more of a holistic view of the infrastructure, of the interconnected infrastructure. And I think what's going to drive the need for ITAM to collaborate with other functions like FinOps and eventually probably converge with other functions to be able to give that answer to the
Okay.
stakeholders. Because ITAM, the way it stands today, for the most part, is showing only part of the picture.
I think so. We've had other guests on before, which they were everywhere from evolutionary to alarmist about the rate of change around ITAM in this way. And you said the magic words around FinOps, and we're very involved in the FinOps world. Recently made some
Yeah.
announcements. How do you see? Is that going to converge? You said the convergence word. Do you see that as a convergence kind of thought, or do you see that in as a coexistence kind of thought? How do you look at that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And my personal guess is that for the most part, it's going to converge, but not necessarily in the short term and not necessarily for all organizations. I think what's more important is being able to pull the right skill sets together, right? So ITAM has a number of critical capabilities and skill sets that are going to be critical for the organization going forward. FinOps has some others that ITAM doesn't have, and so forth. So what's important is that the organization is going to be able to bring those different skill sets together to give the right answer to stakeholders, to be able to make informed decisions and everything else. And so whether they do it with those two functions, converging into one organizational unit, or they just remain separate but collaborate effectively together, that'll probably vary from organization to organization. I think over the next few years, most organizations will find it better to collapse them into one organization. But again, that's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow, and that may not be the right answer for all organizations. But again, the key thing here is how do we, get the collaboration and get those different skill sets to work together.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, from a capabilities point of view, if there's a set of capabilities that need to work together, I look at the FinOps framework, right, that comes out of the
Mhm,
foundation there, and it's very capabilities oriented with capabilities and scopes and so on.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
You see that as a guiding light to move forward because they do have, like, there's capabilities or boxes on an architecture slide.
mhm.
There's boxes around license management, around SaaS management, and so on. Do you see that as the guiding light for the industry, or do you see something else evolving?
Yeah, I think those the way the FinOps Foundation has structured those in their framework, which is updated once a year, I think is very effective.
Okay.
There are aspects that the FinOps framework does not currently address yet, or doesn't address to the level that organizations actually need. FinOps has been mostly centered on maximizing value, usually initially from public cloud, now with respect to technology overall. So not just minimizing costs, but actually maximizing value. And they do that part, I think, very well. Their approach to that is actually quite advanced. Two areas that ITAM looks at today, which FinOps doesn't, are more of a risk management perspective, things like license compliance and so forth. This is really not something FinOps currently looks at,
Yeah.
whether it's in the frame, not from a framework perspective, not from the perspective of what actual FinOps practitioners are doing at organizations. So risk management is one. The other is more like a life cycle management approach, which is
Mhm.
key to ITAM, to many ITAM programs today that FinOps really doesn't look at. They really focus on a different kind of angle to this, which is kind of value maximization, having kind of the visibility and enabling informed decisions that are based on value and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think those differences are really going to probably, I would say, shrink over the years, because I think I would expect that next release of the finance framework, they'll come closer to addressing some of these other areas and so forth. So I would expect those to narrow over the years.
You have a say in that too. I mean, from a standards point of view, and now that we're sister organizations to some extent, how do you see that? Is there any work going to go on around that? Are there committees forming? Are we going to be driving in that direction? How do you see that going?
Yeah, we're so from an ISO standard perspective, the fourth edition of ISO 19770-1 is going to be much more aligned with the FinOps framework. We're going to centralize on the inform, optimize, operate kind of cycle of continuous improvement and some of those terminologies and so forth. And that standard has been delayed a bit. Actually, one of the reasons it's been delayed because there's been somewhat of a debate on the ISO side how far we want to take this alignment, and want to force this alignment in this version versus future versions and so forth. But it's definitely heading in that direction, and yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot more of that.
I always like, I mean, I'm not trying to be flip here at all, but man, I put marketing slides together 3 years ago that applied, the FinOps life cycle into ITAM, because it seems to me that the problems on both sides are, while there are separate capabilities, there are distinct capabilities, we'll say, and some distinct use cases involved in that. The core principles are very similar. Like there's a core kind of way of doing things, way of working, and then there's a core set of principles that do seem to, that Venn diagram, that intersection point is quite large.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that was
I
great.
completely agree with that. Yeah.
is cool. Okay, so so I already have booked. I'm booking our next session on when that standard comes out. We're going to talk through that on this. So
All right.
another tech at the table on that. Okay, fascinating. That's
I look
cool.
forward to that. Yeah.
What about you? Also said, in the interconnectedness, you talked about interconnecting with other groups, security, for example. We all know
Mhm.
how ITAM and FinOps connect to procurement, but there's other groups that are connecting. And I thought of, when I think of FinOps, I always think of a table of ops-oriented people where they have FinOps and SecOps and DevOps and, AI ops and all the different ops is sitting around the table running the business. Do you see that kind of a future where FinOps is interconnected in with those other process disciplines?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to the FinOps Foundation's credit, I think this has been kind of a core focus of theirs from the beginning. And I think they're going to continue to evolve that in terms of how to work with whether it's allied personas or core personas, how to work with stakeholders, how to work with them to identify what data they need, what data is available, putting data, in the path of decision makers, and kind of getting that kind of whole concept of collaboration has really been core to what FinOps is about.
Yeah.
So in their credit, I think they've done probably a better job at this than many ITAM programs that exist
Yeah,
today. And I think this is one area that will continue to evolve for sure.
well, even in the like, it's interesting. Even in the ITAM world, right? Stakeholder management is, key success factor in any ITAM
Mhm.
program. And as technology in the world has evolved, those stakeholders have broadened across, and there's some struggles in that for ITAM. But I
Mhm.
do give FinOps credit for anticipating that to some extent. It's kind of comes from a different kind of birthing place, I guess. And I know of FinOps practitioners who handle hundreds of stakeholders in various application groups and all
Mhm.
across the country. It's got to be a core competence of the teams going forward, and even at a fine grain. It's fascinating to me how much collaboration
Mhm.
happens from that hub. Um,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think if you look at most ITAM programs today, they're unfortunately still many of them still work more in a silo than they should have, right? And it's that's just unfortunate. And like I said, FinOps was designed from the start to be the exact opposite of that, right? And so I think there's
yeah.
a lot to learn from what they're doing.
So if I go in, like I get a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I'm looking at career change. I'm looking to evolve my career. We're in the industry. We have friends and colleagues." And I always tell an ITAM, if I get it from an ITAM person, I always say take the FinOps training. Like start
Mhm.
with FinOps training. It's very related to what you do. You'll be amazed at the overlap, and it'll give you a whole different perspective. Do you think that's good advice, or am I leading people the wrong way? What do you think?
I think it's great advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
really great advice because the future is in the point of convergence and collaboration and so forth. And so I think for an ITAM person today, not to have visibility into what FinOps is and how to work with FinOps and so forth, I mean, that's career
Yeah.
limiting.
I would think. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Yeah. I saw the same thing back in the day around you know, um, I'm going to date myself here, but you remember the old days of automated testing versus manual testing,
Hmm.
those and all of
Yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of, all continuous testing, DevOps and so on. Same kind of
yeah,
concept. If
yeah.
so the other thought is AI. Like we mentioned AI in the up front, and it has clearly a disruptive factor. It's
Mhm.
it is blowing costs out of the water. It is changing the outlook for companies. It's connecting with revenue. It is a true disruption kind of in the
Mhm.
application
Mhm.
space.
Mhm.
So while we talked about infrastructure evolving to meet it, but AI actually exploding to a great extent in a lot of companies.
Right.
How do ITAM slash FinOps or the industry, the whole slash the star ops, the whole world adapt to that? Like, what are you seeing out in your customer base? What are you seeing in the industry there?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question, and that's I think the biggest disruption that
Yeah,
we're just starting to see. And there are two aspects to it that we usually talk about in that context. There is ITAM and FinOps for AI, and there's AI
yeah,
for ITAM and FinOps, right? And as far as ITAM and FinOps for AI is, what we're trying to do there is help organization manage the value that they're getting from their AI investments. And if you just, Gartner has a lot of numbers about what kind of investments organizations are making in AI. I think one number that they quoted was that 60% of all AI initiatives fail If you think that's a staggering number, that's a ridiculous amount of money that goes to
That's
goes
a
to
lot.
waste.
That's a lot.
Uh, and uh, and so organizations really need help managing those investments, tracking those investments, getting the most value out of them, optimizing costs and everything else there. One of the things that are unique about AI is that, first of all, it's a lot more interconnected than
Mhm.
other technologies, right? So you have, it's heavily cloud-based, but it's also leveraging SaaS, on-prem, a lot of other components. So it's a very interconnected type
Mhm.
of technology to implement. The other thing that's unique is that it has unique licensing metrics that are somewhat complex, that are still evolving, right? Things like tokens and other things, in the way AI costs are getting calculated. Many of these new metrics lend themselves better to be managed through more, or what I would call traditional FinOps approaches, as
Mhm.
opposed to traditional ITAM approaches. But you still need kind of both, depending on exactly the solution that you're rolling out, and how the different components are licensed and tracked. And so I think all those different things really make AI a big challenge for ITAM and FinOps, and actually necessitate ITAM and FinOps working together to really give, like, say, someone like a CIO the
Yeah.
complete picture, because none of these functions can do it together for AI. So I think, so FinOps and ITAM for AI is a key need that many organizations are requiring. I said, a lot of executives asking, what are we spending on AI?
Yeah.
What value are we getting for that spend? And only FinOps ITAM working together can answer that. I think the flip side is AI for ITAM and FinOps. How can AI help
Yep.
us do ITAM and FinOps better, faster, cheaper? And I think this hasn't even started yet. For us to see what could be done. I think, program. I know you guys
We're
are
working.
making in that
Yeah.
space around, and looking at some of the low hanging fruit first, for example, like around contract
Yeah.
analysis and other things and so forth. And you could probably talk a lot
Well, yeah, I don't want to give you
more.
the pitch. Yeah, but we do. It's very important, right? Because you can get to way more faster, cheaper, more effectively, more automated, right? There's a lot of benefit to applying AI. As long as you have
Yeah.
the trust factor has to be there. Because when the data that we're gathering, the data that any FinOps or ITAM, you know, group or function or collaboration is gathering, is mission critical data to the company. So you have to be
Mhm.
incredibly clear about the custody of that data, the security of that data, so on, right? So inside that, modulo that, right? Yeah, it's really important to do well and you could be aggressive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's going to be technology driven.
Yeah,
So I think the reliance on leading technologies such as Flexera is going to be increasing to do that. What's that going to enable? Whether companies are doing ITAM and FinOps in house or whether they're outsourcing, it doesn't matter. It's going to enable to shift the focus of what the individuals are doing, the FTEs,
yeah, yeah.
to more higher value add activities. So, a lot of the counting and the reconciliations and so forth could be done more in a more automated fashion, and kind of freeing up resources to really work with stakeholders to implement recommendations and kind of higher value add activities. I think that's going to be tremendously beneficial for a lot of organizations.
I know it's just starting, like we're in the tip of the iceberg to some extent, but we can see the vision, like you and I share that vision.
Mhm.
We're sitting here a year from now, how much of a dent has the industry made in that? Like the beautiful thing is you want your system, you want the agents in your system to work together, you want them to be able to access the data except properly, right? And you want them to be able to make sure the data is properly curated, to make sure that and there are recommendations that humans can then digest and do
Mhm.
something with, or automate. When do you think we really start to see that in your mind, like in enterprise customers or even in, technology providers? How do you see that?
I think it's just starting to emerge now with some tools offering kind of agentic AI capabilities and automation and so forth. I haven't seen personally like something that's really in a large scale production kind of
Right.
capacity that's working in our specific space of ITAM and FinOps yet, but I'm sure that's going to happen over the next few, I don't know, weeks and months, and
Yeah, it's going to go quickly. Yeah, I think it's going
yeah,
to go faster
it's
than
happening
you think.
quickly. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
I think we sit here a year from now, my bet, I mean, I'll put it on the table. We sit here a year from now, January 2027, there'll be a big dent made in that. Like it'll go faster than any of us think, just because of the way it's evolving so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting as well is that for those types of rollouts to be successful, you're going to have good data, and that's what we're telling our clients as well. Even if you're not looking to implement AI for ITAM and FinOps today, you need to start working on your data quality today, because otherwise you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be in a position to implement AI a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if you don't start worrying about your data quality today.
I mean, you can implement it, but it'll end up in the 60%, right? It'll end up in
Right.
Gartner's 60% bad bucket. You won't come up with the right inferences. You won't come up with the right conclusions.
Exactly. Exactly. If you give AI bad data, all AI is going to do is give
Well,
you bad insights, and then
yeah,
and
let me tell
and,
you.
uh, and
100%. Okay, that's
yeah,
true. So what do you recommend to your clients around data then? Like what are you telling them? How do they get their house in order essentially around it?
yeah, they really need to look at the different components of and different layers of data that they have, where they have it, and use tools, for example, like Flexera, to improve data quality, whether it's within CMDBs or elsewhere and so forth. Because again, that's now is the time to start looking into that. And they really need to uh, take a technology-led approach. I think in the future, AI is also going to be able to help organizations improve data quality. I haven't seen that in production just yet, but I think for now, organizations know what they need to do, right? They know which data is bad. They know
Yeah.
where to pull better data from, and it's a consistent effort that is technology led to gradually start improving that.
Do you think so? So in this world, right, that's rapidly evolving, so getting your data right,
Yeah.
it's a foundational use case, we'll say. If
Mhm,
you were
mhm.
advising or you are advising your clients in this world of AI and convergence, capability matching, what are some other use cases that you say, look, these are the ones, if you latch onto, are going to drive you in the right direction? Are there any others that are emerging like that that you can advise customers to go for and think about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, data quality by itself it's a big one, and there are a number of different layers within that. Right? It's around entitlement management, is around discovery and inventory. There's a lot of different aspects. Even within entitlement management, there's several different domains there around anything from contract repository and analysis and so forth to other things. But I think data is definitely a big one to focus, partly where I would focus on first.
Mhm.
And then I would just re-advise our clients as well to really stay very closely in touch with their technology providers. For example, with Flexera, to understand what's the roadmap,
Yeah.
what is coming up, and be able to start taking advantage of that as soon as possible.
Do you think, okay, so I'm going to ask it's not controversial. About 3 years ago, I first was in Flexera. We carried around a deck called The Unintended Consequences of Cloud, right? Which was
Hmm.
unbridled spend, your P&L is going upside down. It was really effective. It generated a lot of conversation for us as we were entering the FinOps business. Do you think that AI and the unintended consequences of AI, which are actually fairly well known, but people are also ignoring, do you think that's a use case that practitioners need to get their arms around sooner rather than later? Or do you think there's a time to wait for that?
No, I think the time to start worrying about it is now,
Okay.
for sure. There's no question. I mean, for ITAM practitioners or FinOps practitioners, if they're not aware of what AI investments their organizations are making, they're already behind. In a way, they need to understand who those stakeholders are that are leading those initiatives. They need to understand what the organization is doing, what's being invested in where,
Yeah.
using what technologies and infrastructures and capabilities, and positioning themselves to provide real value in that journey around visibility, transparency, the costs, and helping optimize those costs and so forth. So I think that's the time to start doing that is today. There probably are a few organizations that not looking at AI and are
Hmm.
not going to do that in the near future. But I think that number is very
Yeah.
small.
Yeah, I think you got to get on that train now. Okay, so we've been daring and we've gone like a year in advance kind of thing. Okay, do you dare to go beyond that? Like, what do you think? This is a thought leadership kind of discussion.
Mhm.
What do you think 2, 3 years down the road the industry looks like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's going to be a lot more leverage of AI capabilities to do ITAM and FinOps. I think ITAM and FinOps are going to be a lot more converged than it is now.
Yeah.
Even in those organizations that don't uh, collapse them from an organizational perspective, the function will be working a lot more closely. And so you're going to see a lot more kind of evergreen, near real-time dashboards and so forth that will have information that is what's now traditionally more ITAM, whether it's ELPs, license reconciliation, and so forth, as well as FinOps related information, and you're going to see all that in more consolidated dashboards, kind of a single pane of glass into the different components of the environment. So if you're looking at a cost of an AI workload, you're going to be able to see the cloud cost, you're going to be able to see the software licensing costs, and you're going to be able to see all of that together. Again, in near real time, more like evergreen, as opposed to the way ITAM works today, which is more, oh, let's do a quarterly license reconciliation
Yes,
and so forth,
yeah.
and so forth. Definitely leveraging AI capabilities to free up the humans to, like we said before, take on the higher value add activities of working with stakeholders, implementing the insights versus doing the bean counting and some of the grunt work.
Excellent. Do you think last thought, just to spring, what about from a C-level point of view? So we've talked about it from a tech point of view. Like, do you think it penetrates the C? How does the C-suite change as a result of all these changes? Do you see impact there?
Yeah, I think C-levels are going to have less and less tolerance to getting, disconnected pieces of information or to have silos within their organizations. You know, cloud used to be the new shiny things, maybe 15 years ago or 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
It's now just part of the infrastructure, no more nor less than other parts. And so and you have SaaS and you have edge and you have mobile devices and you have everything, and it really is a single infrastructure. And if you're a CIO, you're going to increasingly have less and less patience and tolerance for getting, this silo here only looks at this little bit here, and this silo there only looks at that little bit here, and I need, it's up to me to consolidate everything and put it together. That's not going to be tolerated. I think so. There's going to be a lot more pressure to get that kind of single pane of glass and manage
Brilliant.
it as one infrastructure.
Okay. All right. So we took it out there. I agree completely. The pressure is only going to grow top down. Okay. So to conclude, I mean, this has been fascinating. It's a fascinating conversation. I really will bring you back when we'll bring back on the standard side, and then we'll kind of look at our bet a year down the road and see how far we've gotten on things. Any last thoughts for folks that are watching the podcast that've gotten through this far? What last nugget of wisdom do you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I think this year 2026 is going to be very interesting as far as seeing a lot of that convergence and so forth, a lot of the impact of AI becoming more evident and so forth. We're in a very interesting time.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Ron, I always enjoy speaking with you. I wish we could do it more often. Good luck in 2026. You don't really need it, but good luck. Everybody needs some of it. Continued success with Anglepoint and the industry. Have a great year, and hopefully you'll come back and we'll be able to compare notes on how things have gone. So thank you very much for
Absolutely.
joining me today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Have a good one. Bye.
Take care. Bye.